Want to save a buck and move to Georgia? Keep watching. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to World According to Briggs. Let's take a look at the Peach State, Georgia. Georgia is considered part of the Deep South. It is home to great cities like Atlanta, Savannah, Athens, and not so great cities like Albany, Georgia. Actually, that's a severe understatement. Put it this way, if Paris Hilton's singing career was a city, it would be Albany, Georgia. Seriously, Google it. You won't know whether to laugh or cry at her singing. It's horrible. With so many remote workers and retirees looking for small towns, I thought that these lists could help. All these towns are safe, affordable, and also have good internet speeds. Nobody wants to get psyched about a town they're moving to just to find out that all they have is satellite internet that can't even deliver Paris Hilton's video, "The Stars Are Blind" in HD, or much less a Zoom call. Most of these towns don't have jobs, just like all small towns in America. There's not many jobs to go around in those, but if you're a remote worker or a retiree that doesn't really need a job, these towns are a great fit for you. So in no particular order, let's see what we found. Number 10, Reynolds, Georgia. Reynolds, Georgia is a small town of around 1,000 residents. It is near the Flint River, which was in Gone with the Wind. Author Margaret Mitchell describes the Flint River as bordering the fictional plantation that the book centered around. Anyway, I actually fished on this river one weekend while I was stationed at Fort Benning, which isn't terribly far away. Actually, I shouldn't say fishing. We drank and sat on the bank of a river with poles in our hand, often forgetting to bait our hooks. I actually caught a spotted bass with no bait. Don't know how it happened. The community was named after L.C. Reynolds, a railroad official. You know, there's a lot of towns in the South, and they named little towns that sprung up because of the rail system after whoever was in charge of that branch of it. It's really weird. This is a solid place to live. Their internet speeds aren't the best, but 30 megabytes per second is decent, and that'll get you some work done. But it's not the best, but it's still doable. The crime rate is 92% lower than the national average. The median home price is $63,900. Realistically, though, you're going to be looking somewhere around $130,000 to buy a decent house. They do have land for sale, but whatever you're going to do. The cost of living here is 20% lower than the national average. Not bad. Number 9. Bogart, Georgia. Bogart is a small town of a little over 1,000 residents just outside of Athens, Georgia to the west. When the train from Athens to Atlanta was built in the 1890s, life flourished in Bogart. The city of Bogart was incorporated in 1905. These days, it's a quiet small town that has potential for remote workers. It's a nice place, close enough to the big city and far enough away to where you're not going to be stuck in traffic if you decide to leave your house, instead of having Amazon bring everything to you. The internet can get up to 100 Mbps here, and crime is 60% lower than the national average. The median home price is $137,300. Now, you can get a decent home, there's not too many of them, for around $240,000. This one's a little more expensive than some of the other places on this thing, but also in this area, they've got a lot of new homes where the price can go way up. They've got a lot of new construction going on, so that's something to keep in mind. Cost of living here is 6% lower than the national average. Number 8. Trenton, Georgia. Trenton, Georgia is like opposite day with Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton, Georgia is clean and has southern hospitality. Trenton, New Jersey looks like a dump and has frequent F-bombs. The population here is about 2,100 residents, and they are about 25 minutes away from Chattanooga, Tennessee. They're right there on the border. Actually, they're near the border of Tennessee and Alabama at the same time. If you were going to Birmingham from Chattanooga or vice versa, you would go through Trenton, Georgia. The internet here, you can get gig internet, which is solid. Crime rate's 45% lower than the national average. The median home price here is $115,000, but realistically, you're looking at around $200,000 and up. They sell a lot of lots here. There's a lot of land, a lot of acreage for reasonable prices. $300,000 and you can get like 40 acres, one I saw. But yeah, they don't have a lot of houses for sale right now, but always check back if that's something you're thinking about doing. The cost of living here is 15% lower than the national average. Number 7, Chatsworth, Georgia. The town of Chatsworth sits east of Dalton, Georgia, and about an hour and a half north of Atlanta. It was founded in 1905 as a rail depot, as so many other places like this, but it was on the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. It was incorporated as a town in 1906 and a city in 1923. Now, they call themselves a city, but really they're a town. They have under 5,000 residents, which I think most people consider a town anything under like 100,000 or even 20,000 residents. This place has less than 25,000 and they call themselves a city. They're not. They're a town. Anyway, it's a nice community of about 4,300 residents near the Chattahoochee National Forest, which is a nice place to visit. You can get 1 gig internet here. Crime is 71% lower than the national average. A median home here goes for $143,400. They don't have a lot of homes for sale right now in the city or town, but on the outskirts they do. The cost of living here is 12% lower than the national average. Number 6. Buena Vista, Georgia. Buena Vista was incorporated as a town in 1850 and it was called Tazewell, but there was another town up the road with the same name, so they changed it. Can't believe there was even one called Tazewell. Anyway, Buena Vista is east of Columbus, Georgia, just the other side of Fort Benning. This is a nice little community that could really use some new blood. I think that's their biggest problem. They need some more people moving in there. They peaked their population with 2,100 back in the 2010 census, and now they've slipped down a bit. It looks like this one they're going to finish with just about 2,053 people. You can get gig internet here, which is good. The crime is 39% lower than the national average, and that's where it really gets good. The median home value is $84,800. Now, there's not many houses for sale here, but there are a bunch of 1-acre lots that are around $10,000. Decent lots, too. Cost of living here is 19% lower than the national average. Number 5, Hushton, Georgia. Hushton is a small town of about 2,200 residents in northeast Georgia, about 45 minutes from Atlanta. It was incorporated in 1891 as the town of Hushton, and they named it after a local merchant. His name was Russell A. Hush. Now, this is a nice place to live, and it's got a lot of things going for it. Back in 2019, though, it didn't seem that way. They got national and international news in some cases about the mayor. She decided to shelve a guy's application because of his race. He was an African-American guy. This is a predominantly white town, and she said she didn't think the town was ready for that. She told colleagues that. Well, yeah, they ratted her out, and she resigned months later. But I mean, other than that, this is a nice place to live. It's a little more expensive on the real estate and cost of living side than most of them on this list, but it's a really nice place to live. You can get gig internet here from Comcast, well, actually Xfinity. If you can get another choice, take that. I'd never recommend Xfinity to anyone. Well, let's see. If I had gone through a divorce, let's say it was an ugly one, and my in-laws paid for her attorneys, yeah, I'd suggest Xfinity to them. Anyway, the crime rate here is 66% lower than the national average. The median home value here is $184,200. A lot of new homes have gone up here, and they're around $400,000, but older, nice ones you can get for about $230,000, $250,000. The cost of living here is 1% lower than the national average. Number 4, Ball Ground, Georgia. Ball Ground is a town north of Atlanta, about an hour from the Tennessee border. They named the town Ball Ground because it was near a ball field where the Cherokee people played stickball, which, if you've never seen it, it's very similar to lacrosse. They have about 2,100 residents, and it's one of the only towns on this list that is actually gaining people. In 2010, they only had 1,500 residents. That has a lot to do with Universal Alloy opening a plant here in 2017. It was announced in 2015, people started moving in. 2017 it opened, and now it's the largest employer the town has. You can get gig internet here, which is great. The crime rate, now get this, is 80% lower than the national average. That's outstanding. The other stats on here aren't the best, but the median home value here is $175,000. Now there's a few houses that you can get here. I looked them up and they're in the, maybe 200,000 area, something like that. I saw one for 130,000. They have a lot of lots for sale, but since the town has work and stuff, they've got a lot of really nice homes now that can get you over 500,000, all the way up to I saw one for $2 million. Yeah, that's pretty much an estate though. Cost of living here is 1% lower than the national average, but it's a beautiful town. Number 3, Harlem, Georgia. Harlem is a small town of about 3,300 residents just outside of Augusta. I love this part of Georgia. It's very pretty, and when you visit, you feel like they probably give out classes on Southern hospitality here. The Georgia Railroad passed through the town until at least the 1860s, so another rail town, just like so many other ones in the South, like I said earlier. Back then, Harlem was actually known as Sawdust. It is also the birthplace of Oliver Hardy from Laurel and Hardy. Yeah, that guy. They actually have an Oliver Hardy festival to this date in the town. It's held on the first Saturday each October on Main Street in his honor. Kind of cool. You can get gig internet here from AT&T or Xfinity. The crime is 50% lower than the national average, and the median home price they say is $111,000. And I looked around, you're looking at least $250,000 to get a decent home. The cost of living here is 13% lower than the national average. Number 2, Cleveland, Georgia. Cleveland is in the northeast corner of Georgia, about 45 minutes west of the Georgia-South Carolina border. It was named after General Benjamin Cleveland, a War of 1812 figure and grandson of Colonel Benjamin Cleveland, who was big in the Revolutionary War. This is also the hometown of Xavier Roberts. Everyone knows him. Well, okay, maybe you don't know him, but you know what he made. He's the dude that created the Cabbage Patch Kids back in the 1980s, late 70s. No word on if he had anything to do with that dance. This is a town that's been catching on in the last 10 years, or maybe a little more. They have a growing population. Currently, they got about 4,100 residents. Back in 2010, they only had 3,400, and in 2000, they only had 1,900 residents. So yeah, it's definitely growing. You can get 1 gig internet, sadly, from Xfinity here. Their crime rate is 39% lower than the national average. The median home value is $138,600. But realistically, if you buy a house that's decent and ready to go, you're looking at about $250,000. But they have a ton of 1-acre lots for around $25,000. So, you can build your own home, tiny home it here. I don't know about the rules on that one, but it might be worth the look. Their cost of living is 10% lower than the national average. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget, like I keep saying, we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link for it below. There'll also be some links to other videos that are similar to this one that you might be interested in. We'd really appreciate it if you took a look. All right, on to number 1. And number 1. Gray, Georgia. Gray is a nice place with really good stats across the board. It's also home of Ward's Dog Spa. Now, the reason I tell you that is because a place is growing when they have yoga studios or dog spas. That's my experience. As soon as you start seeing yoga studios and dog spas popping up and Starbucks, the place is gaining some young blood. Now that's all good and everything, but there's a great story here. Gray was founded in the 1850s and named after a local resident, James M. Gray. Now here's where it gets cool. James M. Gray died in 1875. The year before he died, he wrote a last will and testimony. Now keep in mind the time frame here. This was 1875. The Civil War ended in 1865. So he was an older gentleman. He owned a bunch of property. This is Georgia. Chances are he had some slaves. But that's where you start to see why he was kind of cool, especially for his time. A decent man, I should say. At least that's what I'm gathering from what I found. While I was reading through all this and trying to figure out who James Gray is and why they named a town after him, which I often do when I see a place is just named after some local dude, I found his last will and testimony. There's interesting parts in here. In the first item, I'm just going to read what I have here. I give and bequeath unto my trust manservant Jim, absolute and forever, my house and lot in the town of Clinton, which is a little further away. So basically he gave a home to his manservant who was probably a slave at some point, I'm guessing, but he also left Jim a sum of $800, which by today's money would be somewhere around $25,000 he left him, which is really good, but it gets better. In the second, he writes pretty much the same thing. I give and bequeath absolute and forever unto my faithful cook and servant, Queen Farla, the following property. 260 acres of land in the county of Jones, which what we're talking about, Gray is in the county of Jones. Talks about who he bought it from and where it is exactly. He also gives her 1 mule of her choice and selection, 1 cow and 1 calf of her choice and selection, and 1/2 the cookery ware in my house, leaving the knives and forks. I don't know why I didn't want to give her the knives and forks. But anyway, also behest bed mattress to be taken from my house and given to her, and the sum of $50 in money. So I think that's pretty cool. And maybe that's why they named it after him. I'm just guessing on a lot of it. But as I read that, I thought, wow, that's really decent. If you think about the time and all that, that's pretty cool. Anyway, the population right now is 3,281 people. You can get gig internet here from Spectrum. The crime rate is 45% lower than the national average. A median home value is $140,000. They have quite a few lots for $10,000. New homes are going for about $215,000 to all the way up to $450,000. They got really nice new ones and they got some decent new ones. The cost of living here is 6% lower than the national average. Not a bad place to live, and I love that story. All right, that's today's list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Have a great day. Be nice to each other.